If you run a minor hockey association, you've probably already done the hard work. You wrote the protocols, you've trained the volunteers, you've sent the emails, ran the meetings, and showed up on weekends because you care about getting this right. And if someone asked you today whether your safety system is working, you probably would say, yeah, most leaders do. Here's the problem. When we actually have asked them to describe what happens on the ground, at the rink on a Saturday night when somebody gets hurt, or a Sunday morning when teams are playing out of district, the answer looked completely different. That gap between what leaders believe is happening and what is actually happening across their teams, across the entire organization, that's what this video is about. We're calling it the oversight gap. Earlier this year, we surveyed 17 minor hockey leaders across Canada. This was presidents, risk managers, head trainers, board members, people running associations of every size, from small community programs to organizations managing 20 or 50 or more teams. We asked them two types of questions. First, we asked them to rate their systems. How effective is your safety approach? How well trained are your volunteers? How strong is your compliance tracking? Then we ask them open-ended questions like, tell us what actually happens. Describe what injury reporting looks like at a practice or at a game when a player gets hurt on a Saturday night. The ratings were good. 88% said that their overall safety approach was solid. 65% said that their volunteers were sufficiently trained, and 59% said that their compliance tracking was spot on. The descriptions, on the other hand, were not so good. Injuries were discovered after the fact. Reports were only filled out when a parent followed up. Return to play decisions varied vastly from team to team, depending on who was actually standing on the bench that day or who happened to be at the rink. One leader put it plainly in their own words. We find out later on many occasions that injuries are just not reported. This is not a quote from a leader that does not care. This is a quote from a leader who is being honest about what their infrastructure currently can and cannot do. And it showed up in some form across every association we spoke to. So why does this gap exist? Why do leaders who have done everything right still end up finding out later? The answer is not motivation. It's not training. It's not even the protocols themselves. Hockey Canada's concussion protocol is thorough, well-designed, and it actually was recently updated. The answer is the infrastructure. Minor hockey associations are asking volunteers to perform professional level safety responsibilities while managing all of their other day-to-day responsibilities without the professional level tools that it requires. When the system runs on email threads, paper forms, and memory, things get missed. Not because people are careless, but because those tools are not built for this. Think about what consistent injury tracking actually requires. As a player gets hurt on the Saturday night, the on-bench safety person needs to document it and assess it immediately. The head trainer needs to know about it by Sunday. The coach needs to see the return to play status before the next practice so they know if this player can be joining and stepping on the ice or not. Parents need to be kept in the loop so that they can go see a family physician or a specialist. The association needs a record that proves the protocol was followed if anyone ever comes back and asks. That chain of communication, documentation, and verification needs to work correctly every time across every team with every volunteer for every injury all season long. On email and paper forms, one misstep breaks the whole chain. That is the oversight gap. And it's not a character flaw, it's a measurement problem. When we looked at all the associations that have closed this gap, the ones where injury reporting is consistent, return to play is verified, and leadership actually knows what is happening across all the teams, three patterns showed up every time. Pillar one, volunteer support. The associations that got consistent execution are not the ones with the best volunteers, though they are great. They are the ones that have stopped relying on volunteers to remember everything. And this means remembering everything correctly under pressure. They guide their volunteers through every step of the injury reporting process. What to document, when to document it, when to escalate things, how to complete, return to play. The system walks them through it. There's no guesswork. There's no missed fields. There's no reliance on memory at 9 p.m. after a game. This is not about doubting your volunteers. It's about equipping them with the right tools and removing the conditions that set them up to miss things. Pillar two, scaled expertise. The associations with the best safety outcomes have one thing in common: a person whose job is to see across every team, a head trainer, risk manager, or even a dedicated non-medical safety lead who owns the entire tracking process. But here's the problem that this role runs into in most associations. Even the best safety professional cannot be at every rink, at every game, with every team. When you're managing 10, 15, 20, 80 teams across multiple different arenas and age groups, physical presence cannot scale. What scales is visibility. A safety lead equipped with a system that shows them in real time what's happening, which injuries are open, which return to play steps are incomplete, and which teams need support and follow up with their team trainers or volunteers. That is how one person can cover the entire association. Pillar three, real-time tracking. The third pattern is honestly the most straightforward, and it often has the most impact. Associations that have closed this gap in oversight have moved from informal reporting, whether this be email chains, text messages, group threads, paper forms, word of mouth, to an actual centralized system that creates a structured record and a foundation of every incident and return to play step across all teams. This honestly, this does two things. It gives leadership visibility that they did not have before, and it creates documentation that protects the entire association, the volunteers, the players. And if a question ever arises about whether a protocol was followed, you have it all documented in one spot, in one space. Email chains and paper forms cannot do either of those things reliably. A centralized system can. So if you're watching this and you recognize your association in what I've described, here's what I would suggest. Start with visibility. Before you rewrite your protocols or retrain your volunteers or add another training module for them to complete, ask yourself one question. Can I see right now what is happening across all my teams? If the answer is no, or I think so, or I probably would have to make some calls or send a few text messages to find out, that is your starting point. It's not more policy, it's more visibility. The associations that have made this shift report fewer incidents discovered after the fact, less administrative pressure on volunteers, and a cleaner documentation process when insurance questions come up. None of that required a budget overhaul. It just required infrastructure. We published a full report on this research. It's free, no email required. It covers everything I walked through today in more depth, including direct quotes from MHA leaders and a breakdown of the 3 pillars with specific examples. The link is in the description below. And if you want to see where your specific association stands, we also built a 2-minute quiz. It gives you a safety oversight score and it shows you where the gaps in your association are most likely hiding. That link is in the description too. Both are free. No sales pitch on the other side. If you lead a minor hockey association and this felt familiar, start there.